Well, I started when I was 8 years old. I actually saw a trailer for a Bruce Lee movie. It was Enter the Dragon. Couldn't see the actual movie at the time because it was X-rated, but I did see a trailer for a Bruce Lee movie. And before that, I was kind of enamored with the world of comic book heroes, you know, the Captain Americas, Marvel heroes. And it's like when I saw Bruce Lee on the screen, it was like, this is the nearest thing to a real life superhero. This guy kicks butt, man. It's like unbelievable. So that's right there. I was taken. That's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. When I saw Bruce Lee, so the next week I went out and got in a Kung Fu school, Hayes Kung Fu Club. And I trained with a guy called Jim Russell for about 3 years, 4 years. And I mean, he wasn't big in giving up belts. I only got to like a green belt and all that time, but it was a good grounding for me. But then I got into Taekwondo, but I really liked the flashy kicks. I was really flexible when I was doing the Kung Fu. So when I found an art that really utilized the kicks and the flexibility, I went into Taekwondo. And I got my black belt by the time I was 15, I think, before I was 16. And then I was teaching in 3 schools in London. And then I got into kickboxing. I kind of moved away from the Taekwondo. I actually got disqualified from like 2 or 3 Taekwondo tournaments for knocking the guy out. So I looked up this guy called Mickey Byrne, who was training a lot of boxers at the time. And I asked him to train me because I wanted to get into PKA, the Professional Kickboxing Association. And Mickey's training was just so unbelievably different than the traditional martial arts training, because Mickey had been a boxing champ in the British Army. He was a PTI in the British Army, physical training instructor, and he'd actually been in the SAS for 2 years. And so this guy was just an unbelievable coach. I mean, he just knew the human body. And I watched him train these boxers at this gym in Brunel University where I used to go train. And I say, man, that's training. You know, you see the pad work, the body conditioning and everything. So I kind of slipped away from the Taekwondo and went to train with this guy. So he pretty much was in charge of me while I was kickboxing PKA in England. And we developed a very close relationship. And we're still in touch today, even though he lives in New Zealand and I'm living in the States. We're still in touch. He's kind of like a second dad to me, and he took me on. And so he gave me the most unbelievable training, and I went into the kickboxing for 3 years, and it was very unpopular at that time. PKA had just started in England, so it was very hard to get fights, and there was really no money in it back then. And the rumors were, if you go to the States, it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars involved in kickboxing over there. So I was like, that's where I'm going, man. I'm good enough. I'm going to make the money. So I talked to George Pettis, who was the promoter, who used to promote all the fights for the PKA back then. And I talked to him about going to America, and he's like, well, how much money do you have? And I'm like, well, I've probably got about 200, about 100 quid or 200 pounds or something. He said, well, you don't want to go to California right away. It's too expensive. It's a bit of a harder life. I would recommend you go to Florida, because he would take fighters all over, all over America. So I ended up flying to Florida on a standby ticket. And it's like I got there, I really didn't know anybody, and it took me a little while to get settled in. And I hooked up with the karate instructor called John Graydon. And I was training and teaching at the St. Petersburg Junior College, and I wanted to get, the reason, like I said, I went there to get involved in kickboxing, but it's a totally different game in America. England's really small. You can pretty much get from one end of England to the other in a day on the train or whatever, so it was easy to get to fights. You didn't need money. But in America, you'll have one fight in California 1 month, and then it's in New York, then it's up in San Francisco. And you've got to be rich just to travel. I mean, America's huge compared to England, if I don't know if people really know about that. So the kickboxing kind of got put on hold, and I was training with these guys, and they were doing point karate there. So I started going into a couple of point karate tournaments, and it just wasn't me. I mean, point karate is like you get tapped, and there's a point, and you don't even know you've got hit. So it was a totally different game for me. But I kept training with them, and I was teaching there with them, and then I got involved with a guy called Mark Russo, who was a student of Stephen Hayes' in ninjutsu in America, which is something I really looked down on for a long time. I used to see these guys in camouflage outfits running around in the woods training in martial arts, and I thought it was a joke until I started training with them. And those guys are good. I was really, really impressed with the stuff they do. And trained with Stephen Hayes for a while, and with Mark, and did that for like a year. And that was before I went off to the Philippines to do movies in the Philippines. And I played around. I trained with a few Eskrima guys there and Kali guys, but I never got super serious into it. It wasn't until I came back to the States and I moved to LA that I started trying to get back into kickboxing again. I trained at the Jet Center with Benny Akitas. I trained there for just over a year, and I was training with Peter Cunningham and Stan the Man Longanides and all the top kickboxing guys there. So I got in, I fought in a World Kickboxing Association light heavyweight title, and I won a light heavyweight title. That was my short stint back into competing in kickboxing, but unfortunately, because I was doing movies, was really hard to just settle into the training. I couldn't like really plan my year because doing the movies, you have to go away for a couple of months, then you come back, then you're gone again for a couple of months. So it was really hard to get seriously back into the kickboxing training. So that was my short stint back in kickboxing. But then right after I moved to California, I met this guy called Winston Omega, who's a Chinese Malaysian. And his style is called Silam Wong Kar Kyun. It basically means Shaolin One Family Fist. And this guy, I'd met him through a friend, and we went to a restaurant. We were just talking martial arts. He's a lot older than me, this guy. Small Chinese guy, very similar stature to Bruce Lee. Not the same kind of physique, but this guy is the most unbelievable martial artist I'd ever met in my life. We went to his car, and he had this bag in the back of his car, like a heavy bag, about this big. And he says, lift up the bag for me. So I'm like this, I'm going, I couldn't move this damn thing. And it weighed 300 pounds. It's full of steel balls. And this is what he used as a heavy bag. And he demonstrated to me some technique, and he went up to a lamppost, a big lamppost in outside this restaurant in LA, and he goes, whack! And he hits the bottom of this lamppost, and the whole thing went, and I was like, shit. And I started training with the Phsyical Omega at that point, and this was like 8-9 years ago, and I've never stopped training with him since. And he's the most amazing martial artist I've ever met. I mean, he's just so good, he's so fast, he's so powerful. He now has a 1,000-pound bag. He was in LA, but 2 years ago he moved back to Malaysia, so I was in Penang in Malaysia, his Kuala school this year. And all he trains on is iron. He actually, you know the wooden dummy, the Muk Jong? He actually has one made for me. Well, it weighs 1,800 pounds. So my Muk Jong is 1,800 pounds, the one I have in my garage. And I have a 500-pound bag, which is just full of steel shot. And I have a 250-pound bag. And this is what we use for working out on. And he's really big in conditioning of the hands, the bones in your hand, striking with all different parts of the hand, and the bones in the forearm and the shins. So that's the kind of equipment we train on. And he's the most phenomenal martial artist. In the last 8 years, I've learned so much from him. Very different than the traditional taekwondo and kickboxing. His style is unbelievable. So I've been very fortunate to have some really, really good teachers in my lifetime. But also when you're doing movies, you get to travel around the world. You get to meet a lot of different martial artists, because a lot of martial artists come to the movie sets, and you work with different choreographers, different martial artists. And so even though you're training these different systems, you're also learning from all over, from everybody. So I'm a huge believer in Bruce Lee's philosophies. I mean, when I first got into Bruce Lee, it was mostly because you see him on the movies and you love the physicalities. But then you realize there's so much more to Bruce Lee with his philosophies and his teachings. And it's a lot of those that guided me through my training. And so it's not so much when somebody says to you, what style we practice, you hate the word style. You really want to get away from that word style and the confines of what the word styles represent. And basically, you just train a lot of different things, and you find stuff that works for you, and you develop your own way of fighting. You don't need to give it a name, you just do what you do. A small part of Miami Vice. Did some commercials down there, did some what they call industrials, where you're doing little industrial movies to promote products and stuff for in-house companies. But yeah, I did a small part of Miami Vice. I did a little bit in the movie Cocoon, and most of it got cut out, but I was actually working in a nightclub at the time, so I got to be in that one. But the Florida thing wasn't really happening. It was really tough having an English accent. Everyone used to tell me that I looked all American, but as soon as I opened my mouth, with a British accent, it was really killing me. It was really hard to get work done. And then I got invited to the Philippines by this director. I can't remember his name, don't ask me his name. But I was like, great, saved up money, flew myself over to the Philippines. He said, you do martial arts, you got a good physique. I can give you lead roles in the Philippines. So with my naivety, I just took off and flew to the Philippines, saved up enough money for a ticket. But when I got there, the guy started introducing me to a few people and taking me out. But it turns out that he thought I was like some rich American that was going to give him money to make movies. And I wasn't rich, I wasn't American. So he kind of just abandoned me, stopped answering my phone calls and this and that. So I thought, well, I could just go back to the States, but I'm here, so I might as well try and make a go of it. So I went around myself meeting different movie companies. And I actually met this guy who was a kickboxer, and I was training with him for a while over there. And we went to this kickboxing tournament in this province called Cavite. And I was spotted by what they call a talent scout over there. And there was a guy, I was in a tank top at this kickboxing tournament. I was a little bit pumped at the time. And he took me to meet this producer called Wilson Chiang, who had a company called Solar Films, a big Chinese family, very wealthy, and they made movies. They had a company called Solar Films. So Wilson asked me to do a demo for him. So we went to a gym that afternoon, and I just did a demo, and the next day he signed me up to do 6 pictures. He gave me a 2-year contract to do 6 pictures. They put me up in my own apartment. I had maids, I had a driver, and I was like, yeah, I've arrived. Here I am. But, they do what they call international movies over there. It's like, I was considered their import star and all this and that. But the movies were pretty, I thought after making the first one, Final Reprisal, I thought this is it, I've arrived, I've done a lead, I've made it. Hollywood's going to be calling, but I was very naive. And it was a fun little picture. I really enjoyed making it. But obviously, it had a big theatrical release in the Philippines, and I know it was sold on video around the world, but it's not really. When I look at it now, it's like, oh my god, that's me. I actually did 2 movies for him. I did the Final Reprisal and then a movie called King Mahi's Island, and that was it, because then he started wanting me to do like soft porn movies and stuff. So I said, forget this, I'm out of here. So I left then. After spending almost 2 years there, I went back to the States, moved back to LA. I've been a fan of Jackie Chan since I was a kid. I mean, since the really early days of Drunken Master, Fearless Hayman, Snake and Eagle Shadow. And even when I was living in England as a kid, I would write letters and send them to Golden Harvest saying, I used to write letters to everybody, London Weekend Television, BBC, you name it. But I always used to regularly send letters to Golden Harvest saying, hi, I do martial arts, blah, 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 I'd love to work on Jackie Chan movies. And you always get very, very polite letters back saying, thank you for your letter, very nice of you to write, but we don't need your type right now. And I just landed a part in a movie called Knights, which was being directed by Albert Pune. I had Chris Christopherson, Lance Henriksen, Kathy Long, the kickboxing girl, was in it. And I was actually flying out to Utah from LA to shoot Knights. And we stopped in like Salt Lake City, and I was paged over the system at Salt Lake City Airport. And I'm like, who the hell's calling me here? And it turns out Golden Harvest had just called and offered me the part in City Hunter. But they actually needed me in Japan because we were shooting on a cruise liner. They needed me in Japan on a certain date so I could be on the ship when it left port. But I still had 2 weeks more to do on Knights. So from my flight from Salt Lake City to actually Utah, I was in this massive dilemma. So when I got there, I spoke to Albert Pune and I said to him, look, Jackie Chan, because he hadn't made it in the States at that time. And he says, yeah, of course I know who he is. And I said, well, I've been offered a part to play a bad guy in this movie. And he said, damn, you got to go do that, man. It'd be a great experience. I said, yeah, I'd love to do it, but. Then I explained to him the scheduling problem. And Albert was like, well, let me see what I can do. So like a week later, he come back and he said, look, I've rearranged the schedule. I've had to cut maybe 1 or 2 of your scenes out of Nights. We'll shoot some of your stuff with a veil so that we can double you when you're gone if you need, but hey, you can go. So I was like, wow, Albert, you're my hero. So that's how it turned out. I actually arrived in Japan like a day or 2 late, but it worked out beneficial for me because originally the opening scene they planned for me was just walking onto the boat with Richard Norton and a couple of the other bad guys. I'm sorry. But because I missed that scene, I got my own opening scene. They devised this whole training scene of me in the bedroom on my own as my introductory scene in the movie. And that turned out very good for me. So yeah, it was like a dream come true for me to do City Hunter. They were on a skip. I had a lot to do in a short period of time for the exteriors of the ship while we were in Japan. Jackie was very friendly, as were most of the crew. They were pretty cool, but you could tell they were under the gun as to what they had to get shot in the almost 2 weeks that we were on that cruise liner. So there wasn't a lot of time for socializing. We would work pretty long hours. When Jackie's working, it's really intense. He really is intense. But the first time I actually got to work with him on that opening scene that I was talking about, Jackie actually choreographed my stuff for me. He shot it, got behind the camera and shot it. And You know, I could see him just buzzing, creating, thinking all the time, really working hard. One of my best memories was the night when we shot our first fight scene together. Because when we were choreographing, he would take me outside and work on the choreo with me. And for some reason that night, he was in a fantastic mood. And he just rapped, talked to me all night about when he started in the business, how his career went, what it was like when he first had fame, when he first started getting money, all the powers he had. But I took different sides. I saw him very, very serious on the set. Just like any other human being. He was pretty hot and cold. I found that one day he'd be so talkative and just want to be your best buddy. And another day he was really cold, just so into the work. And that's just how he is. And I got every respect for him because I think he is one of the best movie martial artists we've ever seen outside of Bruce Lee. I think he really is one of the best we've seen. It's very, very entertaining, very successful. And I really like the Hong Kong directors because they bring different unexpected elements to their movies. Whereas I find a lot of the Hollywood directors, you know, maybe it's not just the directors, maybe just the Hollywood mentality from the studios or whatever, is a lot of times when I'm watching an American movie, you can almost predict what's going to happen. You can almost second guess it because you've seen it time and time again. They're very into formulas. And that's why sequels are so popular over there, because formulas work. If it works, we'll do it again and again. And you want to keep making money. But when you're watching a Hong Kong movie, there's often stuff in there that just, where did that scene come from? The director just inject something of their own personality. And it's just stuff you would never expect to see in the movie. And I love it. I like that, not knowing what you're going to see. Wong Jing is just a really, really fun, weird character. He's kind of guy you enjoy being around. He has a really good fun energy on the set. He's pretty much yin and yang, Jackie's intensity, and then Wong Jing really relaxed, funny, always funny on the set, always joking around with people. You know, when we did City Hunter, we never had a script. It was very hard to figure out what his interpretation of the movie was. And to be honest with you, while I was shooting, I had such a basic outline of this movie. Terrorists on a ship, kidnap a girl, Jackie saves them. That was pretty much all I knew about it. There was no script, so it's very hard to develop any kind of character, any background to the character, because there's no script. Right before the scene, they'll give you some dialogue. And you just do the best you can. Basically, I played it just like a stereotypical bad guy that I've seen in many, many Chinese movies, because the acting style over there is so different. It's so OTT, the acting, very, very over the top, you know. In America, less is best. It's about being subtle. But in Hong Kong, it's very over the top and very dramatic. And often Wong Jing really wouldn't give us any direction, because maybe it was because his English wasn't so good, but we would always be passed. There wasn't even direction through the ADs. They would just basically give me a piece of paper, this is your dialogue, and that's what you're going to do right now. Okay. And then sometimes I would be acting with a Chinese guy who would be speaking in Chinese, and I'm just listening for some kind of tagline that I can, when I'm supposed to come in and respond. It was very interesting though, because when the action was being shot, Wong Jing would pretty much just leave the set and go to sleep. He wasn't around. The action was left up to Jackie or Chen Sedong or any of the guys that would handle the action choreography. RG was another guy. So I don't know about how would you interpret Wong Jing's interpretation? It's very different out there, off the wall. Anyone who knows his movies now will know, you know. I was so excited to do my very first action scene over there, which was the opening training scene of the movie. That was one of the hardest scenes I've ever shot in my life, because they do so many takes on things. I don't know if you remember when I was going down in the splits and all that, and I had to do it really, really, really slowly, and they actually put my feet in like this wax paper so I could slide out really slowly, controlled. Now it's okay doing the splits, but when you have to do it 20 times, and after that I still had to do like the jumping kicks off of the couch and this and that, and my legs were like jelly, and I came out totally physically drained. I was like limping out of the room. I got blisters on my feet from doing it so many times. It's like when they ask you to kick in front of the camera. Okay, simple kick. I just got to kick. My foot's got to go in front of the camera. But they want it millimeter perfect. So it's like I did this take 20 times. Just a simple round kick in front of the camera. And I went over to Wong Jing and I said, Wong Jing, am I that bad? I have to do it so many times. He said, what are you talking about? Jackie does it 100 takes sometimes. When we want it right, we want it perfect. It was a great time for me to go to Hong Kong and work with Jackie Chan because it was early in my career. And to me, it was like going to school and learning how action movies really should be shot, how fight scenes really should be shot. In the States, they'd be great when it comes to shooting all the helicopters and car crashes and explosions. But when it comes to actually the physical action, the fights and everything, nobody beats the Chinese. And in China, Jackie's, in Hong Kong, Jackie's the tops. His group are the tops. So it's wonderful for me to go on the set every day and just watch how they work. And I learned an awful lot. I learned some things I didn't want to learn, but you're growing up watching these guys, you see them do all these amazing moves, and it's like, wow, some of these kicks and the way they climb this and climb that. And due to my naivety, once again, I didn't realize they used to do it. And I was like, oh, that's how they do it. So that kind of took away a little bit of my, I don't want to say my respect for those guys, but some of the awe that you have for the stuff that they do, it kind of took it away. Still a tremendous athlete, still the best choreography, still the best sense of timing, the best sense of rhythm, the best sense of editing, and story drawing that I've ever seen. And I'd never seen this before. But they'd set up like these big RSJs in the ceiling, big metal beams that would spin around with wires coming down, so you could do all these amazing wire games. And I look at the set, and like I say, it's more like a construction side of the movie set sometimes. It's amazing the lengths they go to get exactly what they want in the film. A lot of my friends have told me, you're going to work with Jackie Chan, make sure you come back alive. So I joked about that with Jackie. He said, no. He said, too many people have been hurt and died in my movies. Safety first. This is something he made a point of saying at the beginning of the movie. When we were shooting on that cruise liner in Japan, they had an in-house video system. And because Jackie was on the ship, they would show Jackie Chan movies every night. And that's it. Sometimes with Wong Jing and Jigo, I became very good friends with Jigo Lee, the cameraman, and we'd sit together and you hear them talking about, oh, you remember when that guy broke his arm? Oh, you remember that guy's head got put out? Oh, you remember these guys when they smashed their head on the ground? You know, like nearly every movie they're talking about, oh, you remember when somebody got maimed? So, no, I was very fortunate. They were pretty safety conscious, and I didn't see too many accidents. I know Jackie actually broke his ankle during the skateboard scene. He actually broke his ankle, and we were all off for 3 weeks. I've seen in Police Story, the original Police Story, when this bus has got the bad guys in and it's coming down the hill, and Jackie comes out in the road and points a gun at the guys at the bus, and the bus is to stop, right? And there's a car behind Jackie that is prepared for these two guys that are going to fall out of the top of the bus that come through the window, and they're supposed to fall on the car. But the bus driver was too scared to hit Jackie, so he stopped too early, and these guys came in, 2 floors down, straight on their heads onto the concrete. A lot of movies I do the choreography, and obviously you have your own ideas and this and that, but when you work with the Chinese, you don't say anything, you just back off and they do it. When they were doing this flip onto the bed with Jackie, and they were wondering what they should do with me, and I said, well, why don't I do it like a backflip here? Because I could do back handspring or back tuck or something, and then come up in a fighting stance. And they were like, no, you know what, that's a good idea, but we'll save it for later, okay? But really, I never ever got to do any hard techniques in that movie. I don't think there's as much as one jump, spin, kick, or any really hard technique. But that was a really tough scene to do. It was pretty intricate hand techniques. And, they're not happy with you just swinging your arm. The whole body movement has to, it's like a dance. When I go back, Jackie comes in. When Jackie comes in, I go back. There was actually one point in the choreography where Jackie got it wrong, and I clocked him. I hit him with a left hook in the face, and I was like, how am I going to get fired? I'd actually heard a Westerner had to be fired for hitting Jackie once before. So I was really worried at that point that I might be off the show. but it was very intricate, and the timing was, had to be very special. After he threw a punch, he was supposed to go back when I throw a punch, but he threw a punch, then he came in with another, and I clocked it accidentally. I was really worried. The last thing I wanted to do was hit Jackie Chan. When I saw the scene, I was shocked because, once again, I thought it was like a serious fight scene, and then you hear the music, so it's like Keystone Cops. There was a lot of laughing going on the set on that day. I really enjoyed working with Jackie on that scene because it was fun. I mean, there's a scene right at the beginning when I'm fighting Jackie and he's playing E Honda and I'm playing Ken, and we actually shot the whole movie, the whole scene at like 10 frames per second, which really speeds it up because they wanted us to look like the moves from the game. So we were doing these repetitive moves, just like like a robot, like the video game characters, and we were just non-stop laughing. It was so hard to get takes done because I was laughing, Jackie was laughing, Jigo, the cameraman, was laughing. It was just a really funny scene to shoot. I mean, it's so cool. How do you prepare to shoot a scene like that? Their imagination in Chinese is unbelievable. But once again, it was tough when we opened up the scene, and I'm doing real basic fighting with Jackie. I don't think I ever did anything really hard in that movie, technique-wise, choreography-wise. But the big thing about the Chinese is the rhythm. You have to get their rhythm down. And you think you're doing it right, and you're just not getting the same timing, the same rhythm as them sometimes. So once again, it's a matter of doing stuff over and over and over and over again until you get it right in their eyes to get what they want. And sometimes you can start feeling in your mind, what is wrong with me? I'm not good enough. I'm this, I'm that, because you have to do this so many times. I had to battle that in myself. I can't let myself get down. I'm in Hong Kong working with Jackie Chan. I can't let myself get down because I feel like I'm not doing it. At the opening of that scene, before I throw him into the video game, we did many takes of him. It was really hard getting their timing. But no, it was a lot of fun doing that scene. And when I saw it, a couple of times I've seen the movie in the theatre, that is the scene that people have responded to the most. And when I was recognised in Hong Kong after the movie, I was recognised from that scene. In Hong Kong, we have these tea ladies that bring around tea and iced coffee all the time. So I normally don't drink coffee at all. I don't drink dairy products in my diet. But over there, you kind of take what you can get. And so we drink this iced coffee. And it was very creamy. And then they put me on this metal contraption with a stand, which will keep this leg straight. And then another piece of metal going up, like strapped to the inside of my leg to keep my leg straight so I could spin around and around. And after drinking that iced coffee, I have to go around like the opposite. People like to ask you, what is your favorite Jackie Chan movie? And how can you say it? There's just so many good movies. I mean, the fact that he can churn out good movie after good movie with original choreography after original choreography, it's amazing. I mean, I've done quite a few movies, and to try and come up with original choreography is so hard. So I have total respect for those guys. Total respect.
Working with Jackie Chan for the first time was on the film City Hunter. A phenomenal experience, no less confusing, I might add, because the same thing existed where, they're pretty much winging it as they go. But, you're working with a maestro of martial art action movies, there's no question. And to get invited to do that was a big thrill for me, and it really was. And we ended up, we're in Tokyo, and we did all the exterior shots on this cruise line that, sailed all around Tokyo Harbor. And then the interiors were done back on sets in Kowloon. And to work with Jackie and see, really, I found, of course, having worked on Twinkle Twinkle, I knew